Hey, welcome to Cooking with Launchlet number 2. Today we're going to do recipes for generating a random email address based on the site that you're in or just something completely random. You can use this if you don't want to give in your if you don't want to give in your real email address to like a newsletter, for example. So I'm just going to give you a demo of how it works. So I'm on somebody's email newsletter here, and I'm going to, instead of typing in my normal one, which is rosano@example.com, I'm going to generate one. So it's unique, and which means different every single time, and also so that I don't have to type it out. So I'm going to call the launcher, then I'm going to search for copy random email, just the name, and I'm going to run it, and that's going to generate a random email and then copy it onto the clipboard. And so we can see here, that's what it generated. Rosano plus blah, 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 which is like the random part, and at example.com. And you can see if I did this again, slightly different. So like every time I do this, I can get a fresh email and can be useful for not giving a real email. It's not going to completely protect you from every single spam filter because you are still kind of exposing your real email here. If you had like a really fancy system, you could just, for example, leave off the identifying part and just give some random thing. But since most people don't have that, I'm going to focus on this plus functionality, which works with Gmail and most email providers. So let's look at the recipe now. And so here's the finished product. Copy random email is the name, and return this.api.lch copy to clipboard. So we're going to copy something to the clipboard. And what are we copying? This string, which is the username plus random stuff at blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to create this from scratch and just go through the different parts of this and maybe do a couple of different variations. So let's delete that and create a new recipe. Let's call this generate email. Something different. So no signature, no arguments. We're just going to go straight to the body. And again, we'll start with window alert, window.alert, just so that we can see what we're doing. So window alert hello, and then I'm going to run and generate email, run, and then it generates, or it alerts hello. So now we can see what we're doing. So let's start with a random number. There's different ways to do this in JavaScript. The standard way is math.random and run that as a function. So now I'm going to run this, and you can see it generates a random number, but it's kind of ugly. It's got this like 0 point, and then it's really long. So I have a different way of doing this that I'm going to use for the email. Instead of math random, I'm going to use date now, which is also long. It's also pretty long. This is basically the current date represented as a number, right? So it's something that is always incrementing as time goes on, and you're statistically unlikely to repeat the same thing. So it's basically random for my purposes. So we're just going to convert this into something that looks nicer. So you can take any number in JavaScript and call toString, which basically converts it to a string. But the argument is actually a base. So if I said 2, then it would convert that number using base 2, which I'm not going to try and explain, but I'll just show you what it looks like. So the same long number represented only with 1 and 0. If we said base 3, then it would be, it would be using the numbers 0, 1, and 2 to represent this other number. So let's use 36. So sorry, before I do that. So the normal base is like 10, which uses the numbers 0 through 9. But if I said 11, for example, it would use maybe not in this particular example. I'm not going to try and explain this math stuff. I'm just going to say 36, which basically means it's going to use the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through Z. So you have 36 possible digits on any given number. Again, read Wikipedia for the math of base. I'm not going to explain that here, but it gives us this. So we had some really long digit, and it turns it into this thing, which is going to be different every time, and very unlikely to repeat, or you're never going to repeat it, basically. And it's short, and it's a bit easier to read, and just looks nicer. So let's go with that. And so now let's put that random thing into an email. So we're going to start with the backtick syntax for strings, because we're going to try and make a template out of this. So the email we're going to use is rosano@example.com. And we're going to start with the plus sign here, which again will tell it tells email services to maybe do something special with it, but normally it just looks like it's a way of customizing the email without actually changing your email address. So we're going to insert the random thing right after the plus. So you got the plus sign, and now dollar brace brace, so that we can put in our random thing, and we're just going to paste that in there. So now you got Rosano plus random stuff at example.com. So that's basically what we need. Let's put that on the clipboard so that it's automatically copied, and then we can just paste it in the form. And we do that by saying return this.api.lch copy to clipboard. I explained this in depth in the last video, so I'm not really going to talk about why it looks like this right now, but return, because this thing is a promise, and then we're calling an existing recipe, and this is a built-in. So more information in the last video. So now I can call generate email, and you can see up here, Rosano plus blah, blah, blah at example.com. And so I can use that here now, generate email, and there's a fresh email that we've created for the moment. So let's make a couple variations on this. It might be nice to have, instead of like random stuff, we can just actually have the website itself, because maybe it can give us some information like, oh, I signed up for this email at this particular website, right? So that can be useful. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to start by cloning this, which basically means take everything that you have here and just make another recipe that's exactly the same thing. Clone, right? So here's the clone button. We're going to hit clone. And now you notice here we have two recipes called generate email, and they're basically identical. So we're going to customize that second one, just so it's a bit easier. We're going to call this generate domain email. Let's actually call that last one generate random. So generate domain email. Here, instead of like random stuff, we're going to say window.location.hostname, which will copy the website into the email itself. So Rosano plus, now this website is kind of nasty. It's like a us11.list.manage.com. Let's do an example at like google.com, for example. So here, if this was a newsletter, I could, okay. So generate domain email. So now I'm going to use Rosano plus www.google.com at example.com. So we've generated an email that is based on the website where we generated the email. That might be kind of cool. So if you receive an email from, if you receive a newsletter sent to this address, you know that like, oh, okay, I signed up for this at google.com without them having to tell you that. So that's useful. And let's do one more that sort of combines both of these. So we're going to go back to random here, and we're going to clone that, and we're going to call this random domain email. So now we're going to create an email that has the domain where we generated the email, and also just some random stuff. So there's our random stuff, and let's get that domain part here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, different ways to do this. So we're going to put the domain part first. And we're also going to replace www. With nothing, just because it looks nicer. And we're going to put a dot inside, in between the two things. You can put whatever you want. I think you can put a dash. Don't put a space, because then that'll break the email, but you can be creative there if you want. So now let's try this one and generate random domain email. So we're going to run that, and it generates Rosano plus, and now here's our stuff. Google.com, which is the domain where we generated the thing, and then we put a dot at the end of it, and then we put some random stuff. So yeah, so now you have a way to just get a completely unique email every time you go into somebody's newsletter form. Again, it's not going to completely protect you from different kinds of spam, from every kind of spam, but it can be useful in certain contexts, and it's just something fun to do.